So we worked on a project investigating coastal drowning fatalities in the Republic of Ireland between 2010 and 2013. So the work was not all my own. We were part of a team, so I'll just introduce the team to you briefly. So on the far left, we have PhD candidate Aoife Kervick, research associate with Irish Water Safety. Next to her, we have Mr. Roger Sweeney. He is the Deputy CEO and PR marketer of Irish Water Safety. Next to him, we have myself, research intern at the Risky and Extreme Behaviour Research Group of NUI Galway, the Psychology Department. Then we have Danny Dix of RNLI from the UK. She's the data officer there. Then we have the project coordinator, Dr. Kieran Sarma of the School of Psychology and leader of Risky and Extreme Behaviour Research Group. And then next to him we have Tom Walters. He's also of RNLI, the UK, and he is the data research manager. So this report was compiled as part of an 18-month project, part of a much larger project overall, in order to create an established enhanced data set for recording water fatalities in Ireland. But it was also included as part of a subdivision of the RNLI's water-based drowning fatalities report on coastal drowning. So this report complemented that quite nicely. So background on drowning, I'm sure you're all well aware, drowning is a global concern at the minute, with in excess of 400,000 people drowning each year. Particularly in Ireland, it's quite an issue at the minute for public health problems too. It's accounted for 132 on average each year, and it does persist as a significant health concern in Ireland. So just to define what coastal drowning actually means, coastal drowning refers to drowning fatalities occurring in sea or salt water, primarily in open sea, beaches, rocks, estuaries or dock areas in the Republic of Ireland. So this report has been kind of compiled in order to identify the extent and the nature to which those coastal drownings have been occurring in the Republic of Ireland between 2010 and 2013. And to just capture detailed events to sort of provide a further awareness of how those are occurring and what's leading to them. And at the minute, we're in a position where there are substantial opportunities to create and enhance a database and work from there to improve greater coverage of those events. So I suppose the overall project aims were to enhance the Irish coastal drowning fatality records and also to produce statistical estimates on which to ground those for scientific evidence. So methods, how do we go about doing this? Initially, we obtained ethical approval to run the project, and then we obtained C67 forms from An Garda Síochána. These typically were the primary source for the project. They were the core nucleus of the data and our reference point throughout. To date, these can be at times underreported. So complementary data sources were identified, and these were Data for Heroes. That was a database by Irish Water Safety. These were just an additional on top of the C67s because they're typically informed by the C67s, so nothing further came out of that, but it was nice to exhaust an additional resource and sort of tap into all areas that we had available to us at the time. Next, the return of service forms from the RNLI. They were utilised, and then we had counter media reports. So in Ireland we have an online media database whereby all media reports are compiled into one area, so that was good. That was a good additional resource to secondary. So then we went about the search protocol and the kind of inclusion requirements. We went by location first to, initially identify whether or not it was a coastal drowning. So we went by location, and then, unfortunately, name of victim, where that was possible. At times, names weren't always reported, particularly in the media reports. Sometimes details such as that were omitted. Then we went by date of incident, and then other identifiers such as the actual classification of incident, and also characteristics such as age and gender. So they were classified into accident, unspecified or suspected self-harm, and then finally natural causes or assault. Then we compiled an SPSS data file, and this was how we established the, I suppose, preliminary database. And then we ran some descriptive analyses and established the following. So the complementary data sources improved the scope of the initial records from documenting 70 coastal drownings to 198. So it was worthwhile including all data sources that we had available to us, even though they weren't all necessarily primary. Secondary were beneficial in this instance. So coastal drowning deaths did account for 39% of drownings between 2010 and 2013. So just a quick breakdown of those statistics. Accidental deaths occurred for 48%. Unspecified incidences were 26.3%. They were sometimes made up of whether or not a definitive cause of death was found, or if there was any ambiguity in the cause of death. Suspected self-harm, that accounted for 24.7%. And then finally, natural causes and assault accounted for 1%. So a quick rundown, I suppose, of the ratio between gender and classification of incident. Males for accidental causes were almost double that of females, up to 65%. Next, suspected self-harm, predominantly made up of females, of 56%. And then unspecified incidences were again males for 23%. So, I mean, an enhanced database would give further enlightenment as to what's actually going on in those categories. Where gender and age were documented, it was found that 82% of all fatalities were actually made up of males. So this tends to be, gender does seem to have some influence in these cases. And between 13 and 69 years of age accounted for 81% of overall fatalities. So location-wise, location was another important factor that we looked into. County Cork leading with the predominant range of deaths of 15 per year, and then followed up by Galway, and then I suppose Donegal after that. So it is worth noting that we didn't necessarily weight the population per county in relation to the deaths that occurred, but this is something that we hope to do in the future once we have an established database. So to conclude, between 2010 and 2013, coastal fatalities did amount to about 40% of those deaths in the Republic of Ireland, and those at risk seem to be males, particularly over the 30 years category. So this cohort does suggest that it probably would hopefully benefit most from targeted intervention design in the future. But in order to do that, we do need an established taxonomy database in order to inform scientific grounded intervention design for the future. And Aoife Kervick will be speaking to you about this later on in greater detail. And I'll take any questions that you have now. Thanks very much for listening.